Welcome to our official podcast, AI Skeptics.
Hi. Okay.
This is Ibrahim,
And I'm Khadija.
and we will be inviting our guest, Adnan Yunus, who happens to be our CEO of the company. And now we have invited him on the hot seat where we are going to give him
Get some tech related insights that have been our burning questions till now.
and
And
some hot topics and some personal questions as well, which we have been meaning to ask for a really long time. Seriously.
so thank you, Adnan.
Hello, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, so why don't you start with introducing yourself?
My name is Adnan Yunus. I am, as you know, the CEO of Opus AI. Other than that, I've been in the software, hardware, generally the tech industry for a while. And my background is in more in the infrastructure side of things, as in, to give an example, when I started, one of the first project that worked was something, a piece of software that went in the Hubble telescope. Other than that, I've worked with Lockheed Martin, with Ericsson, and a whole bunch of companies that work on the things that we don't think about, but actually play a big role in keeping this modern civilization going. So your roads, your telco, your internet, everything, and that's where uh, I usually like to stay. Yeah.
So, one question I wanted to ask you was what sort of motivated you to make the big shift in moving to the US? Was it just work related or was it your family?
Um, so that's a good question, but I think most people move to the US because they are motivated by making more money, easier lives, the better infrastructure. For me, part of it, I guess, like a secondary reason would be that, but the primary reason was that every interesting technology, every things paradigm shifting thing, um, usually starts in the US in one way or the other. Taking from the internet to autonomous driving to anything else, and that trend is it's not changing. It's actually accelerating, right? So, which basically means that if you want to do something um, that will shift the paradigm of an industry or change the world, and you want other smart peoples to talk with, work with, then that's where you want to be. So that was one of the biggest reasons why we moved to the US.
So, when did it happen? Like, how old were you and what were you studying? Were you in the university or in college or?
No, actually, no. I so um, all my education, like everything, isn't from Pakistan. So I didn't go to US to study. In fact, I didn't go to the US at all. First, I moved to the Canada, and there I was working for a startup that was building something that later would be known as Internet of Things. So at that point, um, we didn't know what to call it, right? And that's the story of my life. That the things that we really work on, we actually don't know what to call them, and later, like a few years or decades down the line, the industry come up with terminology for it. So that was a system that would control the lighting in your house, give you video call, and a whole bunch of sci-fi aspect, right? And not all of that is still materialized in the house, but if you look at some of the newer devices that Facebook came up with, I think it's called Facebook Portal, and Google also is foraying in this, but we were working on it in that was is back in 2007, right, to building something like that. So that was a long time ago before any big players actually start thinking about it. But we were building it, and later I started working with Ericsson, General Electric, and that was more on the infrastructure side again, working for smart grids, which basically is a system that controls the electricity that you get, and manages that everybody continues to get that electricity. So it's a pretty cool system. With Ericsson, I was working to for the 4G, and then 5G rollout. So building on the infrastructure, and my team was working for the engineers within your AT&T and Verizon. So yeah, that's sorry, that's more of a nerdy side of things, but right.
Right. So one thing I do want to ask, since you work with such big companies, was that something on your bucket list, or is that something you were motivated by, that you want to work with people who have been creating these ground-breaking innovations?
Quite the contrary. I actually prefer working in small teams with people who are doing something not really small, but I believe that small teams can make a lot more progress than bigger teams. And it's simply that big companies pay much better than small companies, first of all. But also, it's big companies are looking for people like me a lot more than smaller companies are, right? Small company has tighter budget, but also at the same time, they don't have a clear idea of what they need, right? With our bigger companies, so give an example, Ericsson has been in the industry, or Ericsson started actually around 2 centuries ago now. And so it's a very old company, and they started by building wires, right? So it means that it has a very well-defined idea of how to run engineering teams throughout the world. And um, people like me are typically the one who are helping the engineering team run efficiently. So we're building infrastructure for the engineering team. So we're like engineers of engineers, right? So that's the simple thing. That personally, I'm not a big fan of working in big corporates because things move a lot slower. Um, there's a lot more red tape, and it's just it's not that much fun, right? Most of the time, you're just trying to um keep the processes happy rather than really disrupt the technology.
So you want to be a
Right.
part. You wanted to be a part of the process where you are being valued, right? This is one thing the startups bring, right?
I prefer to be somewhere where I'm doing something that would change an industry in one way or the other, right? In small or big way. So the context, previous answer, the context of that was that, did I prefer to work in big corporates? And the answer is no, I don't prefer to work in big corporate. I prefer to actually stay in smaller, agile teams that are changing something big, right? So yeah.
All right, Adnan, let's go back a little while you were telling us about the terminologies and like giving anything the specific name, right? So, what was the motivation behind naming Opus, and and how long was this idea, and what gave it its name? Was it you or was it the industry?
Um, Good question. And the answer is complicated. So we didn't start with Opus. Opus is actually the third name that we picked after going through a bunch of names. We started with so we didn't, again, it's the same story here as well, because we didn't quite know when we started what exactly is it that it's gonna become in terms of the naming, or what how other people will, more important, how other people will perceive it, because that's the actual problem. So we were pretty sure what we're doing is going to be groundbreaking. It's going to change the world. It's going to do something, fundamental um, in the field that we're playing in, which is basically design. But at the same time, we didn't actually know how other perceive it. So we started with the name. automata. So, playing on that term automata, which basically mean automation, general automation, right? And automata was that, okay, it's something related to art, and it's something. So we had that meta thing going on long before Facebook decided to go meta. Just to be clear, but um, we found that it was too complicated for people to grasp what exactly is that we're talking about, right? It just became as a barrier to understanding something that was already one of a kind, right? And then we um, gave it up and we went to another name, procedural. So procedural.ai was for the longest time our, and we found out that, I mean, it's, my head, it completely makes sense, because what we're doing is kind of like, building something procedural. And I thought that it's gonna, ring with people, but it turned out that most of people actually thought that when we say procedural, we're talking about something medical. And nobody liked it. And then there were a lot of sleepless nights that I would wake up in the middle of the night, with a whole bunch of ideas, but none of that would run. And then eventually, one day, this just um, uh, so I was going through a whole bunch of ideas that, okay, this can be it, this can be it, but this, then when we came upon the word opus, we were like, okay, this is something that actually really makes sense in the long term of what we're doing, right? Because what we're doing is redefining what. So if you don't know what opus means, opus is a Greek word and it basically means work, right? And literally, like, it's a literal definition of work is, and that's why you see a lot of job related companies adopting it heavily. But in our sense, it was like, okay, we're doing something that is going to redefine work, and it is artificial intelligence. And the longer we thought about it, it just started to make more and more sense, because um, that's something that we knew that we're going to play in a lot of fields and a lot of industries, and wherever we go, it's going to be that basic theme that, okay, we're changing what the work is for those industries.
And for our viewers who do not know about Opus and like how we are redefining work, could you tell them like what is the main dream and vision behind it? What we are actually doing at Opus?
Absolutely. This goes back to the finding the biggest pain point for the human civilization in a way, right? Not for industry, not for a person, not for a company, but more like human civilization. And um, for me, the biggest pain point, or the something that takes the longest for us to do, is generalized design, right? Coming up with the blueprint of a machine, of anything that we want to build, right? So even if you're discovering drug, actually designing um, the composition of the drug is the longest process. Like once you have it, then building it, testing it, all that. It's not a short term. It doesn't take happens overnight, but it's the same time it's determinable. Like you can actually predict that, okay, in 2 months or 3 months we're going to be done, right? Because that design is something that is has an indefinite um, amount of time associated with it, right? If you give something to um, so I mean, that's the thing we saw in a lot of industry, and that's the thing that we came out to sort, um, to help people or help anybody experiment with ideas much faster. And that was the idea, right? And fast forward that, and we realized that, okay, if you wanna do it for a industry or of a technical person, it's easy, right? They already know the tool, they already know how to play with them, they have experience and all that. But let's say that you want to mobilize, create upward mobility in the entire civilization of every single human being, right? That's going to be super hard because not everybody has the same skill set, not everybody has the same background, not everybody has the same even talent or and so what's the common thing amongst every single person on this planet? Language. We speak one language or the other, right? We have to communicate in language. That's the first thing we learn. That's the first thing we use, and that's something that we actively work on to get better at. Um, you know, so it's not something that anybody can at any point give up, say, okay, I'm not gonna communicate, right? Whether we're watching something, whether we talking to our friends, it's always we're learning new words, we're learning new terminology, we're trying to make it short, and etc., etc. So that was the point that we were like, okay, that is something that we need to use if we want to create upward mobility for the entire civilization.
So I have a question. You mentioned the AI before, and I know we've gone through this one prior, but I wanted to ask again, how would AI, would it be depleting human connection as it advances, or is that just a hoax, or is that because AI always has this doom and gloom sort of underline to it ever since the concept came to the surface? What do you think about that?
The Hollywood version of AI, right? The Terminator from the future. Um, I'm not. I'm not. So I'm a, first of all, understand that I'm an optimistic person, right? And I'm not on the side of doom and gloom. I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon for various reasons, technical and but at the same time. Um, so there are risks in AI, but those risks are not related to AI coming back and exterminating us. Those are different, more technical risks that we have to assess and we have to. So other than that, the more I guess real risk that people feel or feel threatened by is jobs, right? Everybody wants a job, everyone wants to work, and they feel that, oh, if somebody can automate my job, then I'm kind of not very useful, right? So which means that they don't have to pay. And again, that's based on a fallacy, um, that somehow computers are replacements. They replace people. They don't, um, which should be obvious by now for most people, but for some reason it keeps on not being very obvious. As in, to give an example, let's go back around 25 years before internet, right? Imagine that somebody coming right out of college, what's their choice of work? You can go into.
Of course, they will be more inclined towards the technology that's been adapting and more towards the development side.
There was no technological job, right? So there's no technical jobs for you, right? If you're coming out of college, you are either working in a firm. Yeah, so you're working in a firm for somebody doing some repetitive work. So you're literally, doing you're typing, right? So let's say that you have a typewriter in front of you, you're learning shorthand, and then you're just taking dictation from your boss. Or if you're like, you're doing some sales, and what is it that sales look like? That you have a vehicle and you're going, from office to office or door to door, and trying to sell something. Imagine that life, and now fast forward 25 years, and what does these two professions actually look like? And that would give you a clear answer of how much um, how technology actually changes your life, right? So sales these days is not going door to door. It's literally like sitting on your computer and talking to people while listening to music, or doing a whole bunch of other interesting things that you can do, right? So things have changed. Life has changed for people significantly just because of the technology. And now if you have AI, mix AI into this, AI does not replace you. AI gives
Okay,
you.
so when you were talking about that, back in the age, how we used to have a person who was back at the typewriter and typing things. Now we have speak recognition, right? You just speak it and it can type it itself. So what it has done is that it has replaced a person who was supposed to be behind the typewriter with a technology that is going to do it itself, right? I remember that back in the age, back I was 12 or 13 years old, I read this. I believe everyone has read it. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl, right?
Yeah.
And Charlie's father was being fired because they replaced a machine in the factory with his dad. So he was doing work. He was work. The working was machine was working more efficiently than his father, right? So what it did was this. I believe that it is just that you're just neglecting a fact that is being there.
So you're so you're giving something of you're going to fiction, right? So Charlie in the Chocolate Factory is a fiction, and if
No,
you're
that's not a fiction. I think that's an established fact that it is replacing you.
it is fiction, and I will give you a practical, a real example to what you're saying, which would show you that's fiction, right? Typically, whenever you see this humans being replaced with machine, you're always going to find that it's in fiction. In real world, um, the reason that we're able to do this mass production, that people can buy $5 t-shirts, you can get pretty much any designer item at a discount, that you're able to eat meat every single day if you want to, of course. And you can have pizza, you can have anything at any point. um, do you think it's because of the technology? Because if you go back to your Charlie and the Chocolate Factory age, having chicken once a week would be a big deal for a family, right? So a middle class family could not imagine having chicken more than once a week. Now here we are, that anybody at any point, even they're from the current definition under or close to poverty line, can easily go to any fast food and grab, like a chicken burger, with not so that's the real world, right? That's not your somebody getting replaced by a machine, right? that's the world that's the world where you're sitting on a chair doing the job of, I would say, more than 100 people that would be doing back in the days, right? um so so
Okay, so what I'm saying is that with time the population has increased rapidly, right? And that is why we have this need to produce poultry in the factories and artificially more than naturally, right? That is why that being is that's why that
Well,
need
some
not being met.
disagree with the population increase,
Exactly.
but
no, 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 Brian. No, no, no. Increasing population does not automatically increase resources. That is a that is a fallacy, right? So increasing population, if you have more population, most of the people will actually starve in that population and die. So the reason that you're able to, even with the increasing population, your lifestyle and your quality of life has improved, is because of the that machine that you think is taking your jobs, right? So that is an absolute fallacy, and people always tend to get into this, and they think that there is some truth to it. I'm not saying that there's completely untrue. Whenever a new technology comes out, there has to be a reskilling of people, right? People who have been doing something for ages, they have to learn the new technology, and the best people who survive, or really are able to get through it, are the people who have an open mind, who are willing to learn this new technology, right? And the people who
Aren't these people who are going with the flow kind of people? Because this technological advancement, it has came over the world after the world wars, right? After World War One, World War Two, because that's how the technology was being advanced, because that was the need back then. So nowadays, people are more going with the flow. Like they are just adapting to the thing that is being created, and because it is bringing more convenience, right?
No, we're making presumptions, right? Or we're picking somebody's I guess like supposition, which are again not based in truth, right? So again, that the wars somehow advanced technology is not quite true. It is definitely does do a lot of things, but most of the technology that are developed during war stay with the war. They are not useful during peace times, right? These are suppositions that we're making automatically without thinking about how it actually happened. People who create this technology are not there. So application of technology definitely happens a lot more. Commercialization happens during war. Inventions, no, wars do not invent things, right? Somebody has to always come up with something. I mean, we're going in a very different things. I would say um, let's try to stay where we can support our argument, right? Because you're saying war automatically, and I can't take this unless there is a solid argument or solid proof behind it. I know. So, so I'm going to give an example of your entire modern telecom industry, right? So that did not started because of war. Nobody wanted, so that started because a guy had a girlfriend who was deaf, and he wanted her literally to be able to hear him, right? That's the entire story. And it's much closer to the truth than, oh, we're going to fight with this, other country. So let's invent, somewhere that we can communicate, right? At the end of the day, that's not how most of technology works. Tesla, let's say, um, came upon the idea of his hallmark AC motor, not because of war. He was just a student in an institute. His tutor says that, okay, here's a DC motor that cannot be improved. There's no possibility that anybody can make an improvement on it, right? And he instantly knew that no, it can be improved. And he struggled for several years before he could figure out what that improvement was. But once he came upon that improvement, it literally changed the world, right? Electricity was no longer just for the rich and just for the people who are close to the power station. It automatically turned every single household into where you could have your light bulbs, where you could have your food processors and all that, right? He did not think of war at all, right? And he was not concerned with war. So these are your major inventions that actually changed the paradigm of civilization. None of them were motivated by any kind of war. And I can give a whole bunch of other examples that had nothing to do with war, right? People who are engaged in war do not invent. I can, that's my personal belief, but it's also supported by a lot of evidence.
So, taking the conversation to a lighter side, I wanted to ask you if you could, what would you like to see happening more in the gaming industry? And my follow up question with that would be if you could ask any tech giant, what would it be? If you could ask them anything, what would it be?
It's a great question. Gaming industry, as we knew it, gaming when I was growing up, it used to be not even, even gaming is for the nerd is a later thing, right? So at that point, gaming was just a thing that people in so that persona was that you're hiding in your basement and playing game kind of thing. Of course, it was not true, but that's the persona that was projected at that point. That there's some of these 1% of weirdos who are playing games because they don't have any friends and they don't like other humans, and they have this ultra white complexion. They can't go out in sun and all. it it pre you know it it pre it may be right, and girls don't play games and all that stuff, right?
What? I play games? No, I play games.
I made a lot of I made a lot of friends who were happened to be girls playing games at that point as well, right? So what I'm saying is it the persona or more like the that thing used to be it used to be a small minority regardless, right? Whatever you say at that point, and it increased and increased and increased, and now we're seeing completely shift of thing, right? People who don't play game are the minority. People who play games are the majority at this point, and it's going to continue to increase because Gen Z and after Gen Z, there'll be simply no concept of people who don't play games, right? That should be completely and that creates a huge opportunity, um, not for games per se, but because if everybody's doing something, which means that then it's no longer you can't actually even call it games anymore, right? Because everybody's doing it at that point, right? It's just part of everybody's life, right? So at that point, it's simply that okay, what else can you do that just doesn't revolve around, I would say, games as well, right? It can be work related, it can be communication related, but one thing that we're seeing more and more happening, and that's in the last 5 to 6 years as games have started to grow, is that people are actually not on social networks anymore. They're not no longer communicating on social networks. They're actually communicating within the activity that they are currently performing. And that activity happened to be for most people gaming, right? So people are, and I'm not joking about this, people are getting engaged in game, people are getting married, people are making a complete people are recruiting within games, which in people are getting hired, people are doing so which means that the paradigm of how we work and live will change as gaming become the norm for everyone, and that's not some far um, future, right? It's literally the next 2 3 years you're gonna see that happen as more and more people come out of schools that for them gaming is a native thing, right? I mean, you already can see that because you have influencers who are 12 years old on YouTube and they have 10 million following, and everybody's
And it has been incentivized by the esports community, like how they have been arranging tournaments and yeah.
um sure. No, I don't buy that esport thing because a lot of those games are actually not multiplayer games at all. Those games are, so take Minecraft, for example, right? It's not an esports game. That's the your last influencer that had a huge following, and he was doing literally nothing, just playing Minecraft and creating mods for it. Is a YouTube influencer, and yeah, so he was a he was a kid, like a probably I think a 12 or 13-year-old kid, but the point being that we can't dismiss it as say, oh, this is being because of this reason or that reason. It's simply of most of the fact of life is that entertainment for most people going forth is going to be some kind of gaming, some kind of interactive um, medium in which you have virtual worlds in which you can do things, right? Activities, and multiple people can perform it, etc., etc. The point I'm trying to make is that um, anybody who dismisses games out of sight of hand that oh, it doesn't apply to me, um, is not thinking long term, right? You're thinking very short term, and that is something that we're seeing with pretty much everybody in the industry as a whole. That they are thinking more and more about gaming. How do can they have um, something that has to do with gaming, right? Because everybody's worried. They just want to have some um, knowledge of it, some investment in it, that so they don't become let's say the Xerox of the world, right? If you don't know what Xerox was, it was one of the biggest technology company around 40 years ago, and now very few people even know what Xerox was. It was a photocopying building machine, right? So it's a huge company, but it became a dinosaur because when computers came out, they just ignored it and they dismissed it, and other story is that, of course, your Mac and your Windows both were an experimental project at Xerox. So they somewhere in their lab came up with this, like, okay, we can create this operating system for, and Xerox were like, oh, we don't want to waste our time on this. We are making big money on this. So now Xerox is, used as an example to say that, okay, if you know what is happening in the world, nobody's gonna know who you were, for that. So that's, nobody wants to become that. So everybody's trying to invest more and more into it, even when if they don't quite get any returns, they still want to know and have some investment in it.
We can say that about Nokia as well, like how we have lost the entire mobile industry that actually started it, and no one can actually see like where are the Nokia products.
Yeah, so I mean, like, sure, you're talking about the mobile industry, like the smartphones. Yeah, of course. And I mean, that's the other part of this, right? So right now, a typical image of a college student would be like, bent neck with, looking at the screen of a mobile phone, right? That's the most typical image, right? And it's not a pretty healthy, I would say, posture. But regardless of that, uh, the interesting bit of that is that that image is not, we think because everybody's doing it, so everybody is kind of thinking it's an ancient image, but literally it's like around 10 years ago, this posture was not a thing, right? Before that, when people were using your flip phones, the image was, you have the flip phone against your, ear, right? And it's like, covering your face kind of thing, right? And suddenly, like, now you see this different image. So what I'm saying is that this will also change significantly.
So basically, what you have to do is you have to adopt during the time, like bring adaptation to your lifestyle and what you are going to do with the age, right? Yeah.
It's a paradigm change, right? So the paradigm change with mobile, what happened is that because you have these slabs of the phone, you have to make this posture. But suddenly, when this becomes, the flip phone of the, last generation, and nobody wants to use it in the next generation, then instantly this entire thing will change. Which means that you have to be very agile, you have to be very mobile, you have to know what's coming, and you have to have some stake in it to to stay in the game, right? Not become irrelevant like Xerox.
Okay, so I have a question. Okay, so like initially, what we were talking about that personally you didn't want to work in a big corporate, right? And because you didn't want to become the part of a process which is going just which is just progressing slowly, and there is no successful outcome out of your output, right?
I wouldn't say that particularly. It's not. It's simply that I'm an impatient person, right? For me, if I don't get something done every single day, then I have trouble sleeping, right? So it's literally that I have to have a list of things that I accomplish every day, right? And in corporate, it's hard, right? Because typically, to give an example, let's say if you're sitting at a big corporate and you're doing something. Um, Spending, I would say, half of your day running a test and just like tapping your fingers on the desk waiting for that test to complete is not really that big a deal, right? Corporates have a lot of money, they can afford to continue paying people even when they're not doing anything productive, and that's not something that I particularly enjoy. So if, and I'm not saying every corporate is like that, I'm just giving an example why generally I'm reluctant to work at big corporates. So I complete your question though. So that's the reason why I prefer small companies, small agile, startups, or like people who are trying to really um, change something, because there you have to, like, you're required to work at a very high pace. You can't afford to sit at a desk and spend your entire day tapping your fingers doing one thing, because you simply don't have any choice. And it can be, for some people, that can be uncomfortable. For other people, it's something that they become, I guess, addicted to in a way. But because they're forced to make progress, and if you're like me, then you already want to do it, so that's like a good overlap. That okay, you know. it works for you.
So, okay, so I wanted to ask you that sometimes it's a hit and run, right? So let's suppose that we're talking about the industry paradigm shift that an industry brings sometimes, and like what Apple did was they launched a touch phone, and they went against the entire industry, how the mobile industry was taking it, like how they have adapted to the technology shift that the Nokia was bringing, right? So it's a hit and run, right? And the thing is that how people are quite reluctant towards taking that risk. Yeah, it's something that you can say that there's the stakeholders in their life are bringing towards them to have that risk. You know what I mean? I'm just saying that not many people are more prone towards adapting to that paradigm shift that they have to bring. Like the paradigm shift that the Apple brought and other technological advancement that one company brings and it just revolutionized the entire industry. So many people are reluctant towards bringing that shift.
You're saying that if there's a paradigm shift or somebody is trying to do a paradigm shift, people are reluctant to accept it?
No, 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 no. I'm just saying that people are reluctant to actually do that. You know, the doers. They
You
are.
lost me for a second there. You lost me with the question for a second.
So you're saying that companies don't want to make a paradigm shift. That has always been true, right? And you were just talking about AI, or machines taking people's job. So the fear, if you embrace the fear, then of course you don't want, because with paradigm shift also comes disruption. A lot of jobs go away, a lot of new jobs are created. People have to learn new things. People have to um, change their daily routines, and not everybody is comfortable with doing that. That's a normal thing that happens, right? Um, and people who frankly make paradigm shifts, um, they are not everybody, right? At the end of the day, paradigm shift is not done by Apples or Googles or any big corporation. It's done by a small agile team who's really cares about something, right? To take, let's say, um, even iPhone example, for instance, right? So Apple didn't itself, like, there was no huge push for iPhone. It's simply like, small team within Apple thought that, okay, this is something that will really change something, right? And they went ahead, created a prototype, showed it, really put in all their effort, and luckily enough, like, somebody heard them and accepted it, right? And same with Android, right? So Android was not Google's project even. It was just a team outside that was doing something. They weren't even trying to create a mobile operating system. They were trying to create an embedded operating system. But they saw the changing winds, change of the tide, and they started working on it. Again, the point that I'm trying to make is that paradigm shift is not done by big companies. They don't want to, because companies are safe, right? Google is not threatened by anything because they have enough money to last, I would say, a while, right? And at the end of the day, because of bureaucracy, it's very hard to even make any such paradigm shift.
So I want to, you were talking about daily routines. So I wanted to ask you about that. How much of our daily lives do you think till today and till the future, do you think AI could potentially take over from waking up to going to sleep? Like what percentage of our day?
I mean, we all wake up to alarms on our phone. So don't you think it has already begun?
From, I mean, throughout all the activities that we do, from waking up, going to sleep, brushing our teeth, getting ready, all of that, working, everything.
You're safe. Trust me. Nobody's gonna take up your waking up or brushing your teeth. AIs are not. They don't have teeth. So
Okay.
so you're pretty safe there.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Okay, so so you were talking about the paradigm shift that the companies bring as very small industries. Do you think your product is going to be the one who's going to bring that shift in the industry before Meta actually brings it?
We're pretty hopeful. Meta is actually not doing anything related to that. Meta is doing just so Meta is first of all, Meta started much later on than us, right? So Meta is way late in the game. They have a lot more money, but they also started on a wrong premise, which is basically that if we create a cartoony world, then everybody's just gonna come and start building more cartoons for people to turn themselves into cartoons. I don't think that's something that everybody's sold on or cares about. It's simply that a lot of people, because there's a lot of money in there, so people just want to be associated with it, right? We're not creating a cartoony world for or having your torso-less heads talking to each other. I don't think that's something that is going to replace anything. Um, so what we're doing is simply building the infrastructure of the future of what we believe is your combo of entertainment, work, or basically the internet. Future, internet V2 would be, and we believe that that is going to be a 3D persistent environment. Again, going back to the gaming example, so games, when they evolved, when they became better, they didn't become cartoony, right? They become more realistic, as in that you have more realistic characters, you have more I would say realistic environments, you have more something that you can't differentiate with reality anymore, and we're heading more and more towards that. And that's where we want to be. That's our sweet spot, where we want to um, create this persistent, realistic worlds that can actually become an alternative reality for you or for anyone, right? Where you can't differentiate, at least in terms of realism, in terms of the kind of interactions that you can do. If you look at what Facebook is doing, it's much more restrictive. It's actually literally you're playing kind of a version of Minecraft, which is okay. I'm not putting Minecraft down, right? Minecraft had a lot of potential, and it's really good for kindergarten and those children. But for adults, it's not really that attractive, right? You grow out of it. So it can be a comfort, I would say, a game for people to play. It's not going to be that, okay, I'm going to give up my real life and start living in Minecraft. That's not going to happen, right? Whereas if you look at more of the newer, I would say, version of games, um, those are something that you can actually imagine yourself saying that, okay, this can be something I can pop in and pop out of as a replacement for reality, because this is pretty real for me, right? The things that you're seeing are real, and some of the fantastical, like fantasy environments, you're not going to even find in real world. Those are more just very exclusive to those environments. Whereas your bricks are not really replacement of any environment, right? They're just in Minecraft, like that's what I was saying.
So you so okay. So what you have actually said, that like people would be more they would rather be in the virtual world rather than the real world.
No, I'm not. I'm not definitely not saying that. I think real world is great. Real world is fantastic. I love real world. I love living in the real world. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that um, a lot of times you don't have a choice. So real world is the unfortunate part of the real world is that it's shared by all of us, right? So you, me, and the rest of the human race, and other I would say species that happen to be on this planet. We share this real world, right? So there are limited amount of changes that we can make to this world before making it uninhabitable for a lot of others, right? So if you say that, oh, we're going to build, these tall buildings everywhere, then your a lot of species won't be able to, um, they won't have a good chance of survival there. Similarly, if you say, okay, we're gonna, get rid of all the cities, and instead we're gonna build Victorian age houses everywhere, or Victorian age buildings everywhere, not a very appealable thing for your urban planner and government, right? At the same time, let's say, so the point that I'm trying to make is that your alternative realities can be a good way to experience um, a lot of stories, a lot of things that you otherwise simply can't in this world. Let's say that you want to go and live in, I don't know, um, a prehistoric, when dinosaurs were around, and you want to experience being a caveman, right? Not gonna happen in this world, right? There is no place on this planet that you can do it, and of course, the dinosaurs kind of have died out, which is one of the other problem. Whereas if you have an alternative, realistic environment that simulates that, you can experience it, right? You can actually live there. You can see it firsthand how it was like, what are the threats, and it can give you if you just want to think academically, it can give you very valuable experience of why and what that world was like. So it can be a great educational experience, and maybe I don't know, like you can have a
You can marry your ex in your alternative reality.
you can. I was going to say, for entertainment, you can also go there. So it can be an entertaining thing. Maybe your buddies, like, I don't know, hunt dinosaurs or ride them or whatever. Similarly, like, let's say that you want to experience being on Jupiter, right? So that's another thing that you can do easily by the alternative world methodology, right? So you don't have to take the, I would say, astronaut training. You don't have to wait for Elon Musk to come up with a rocket that can go to, moon. Jupiter is definitely a long way off with the speed that he's going. So you can experience all that, right? So that's the power of what the alternative world, that your entertainment, your education, your even work can be pretty different, right? Let's say that you're bored, like you're sitting in office and you're doing work. Like let's say that you just want to pop off to an island somewhere on Europa and work there, right? So the point I'm making is that changes the way and a lot of problems that we face very easily, right? For employers, it's much easier because boredom of employees is a big thing that can really it can really help with that.
So I wanted to ask you, since you have so many years of experience, what advice would you give someone who's just starting out in the tech or AI industry?
Don't start in tech and AI industry.
Okay.
That's a bad idea, right? Because a lot of people start with the premise that it somehow is a magical thing, that they happen to be fortunate enough to just live in this age and they can just jump into it and they're going to start making some long ad. If you want to make money, maybe it's a good place to start. But if you really want to make money, then probably start in fintech. Don't even start in tech at all, because fintech is where the big money is. Or maybe go to even law, because that's where you make the most money. So
So
Okay.
don't come to AI, don't come to tech.
Uh-huh.
no, here's the thing. What I want to say, right? So do what is sustainable for you mentally, that you actually care about, because in the long run, that is going to beat anything else that you think you're that you're gaining out of it, right? Because if you're passionate about a particular profession, um, and you do it well, you're gonna eventually make just as much money that you're gonna make in another profession. The only difference is that you're actually gonna be happy doing it, and people who are gonna be working with you are going to be happy working with you, right? Versus most of the people that I see in the tech industry who enter it, and they make some money, and then the next thing they are like, oh, I want to go and become a painter, or I want to go and become a writer, right? So you spend your 10 or 15 years in this industry, and now you have some experience and you just want to leave. That's a silly thing for me to, that I don't think that's a, good way to do anything. Because to become really good at something, it takes significant amount of time, and when you're good at it, you want to stay there because of the accumulated value that you can derive out of it. And if you are not sold into that in the first place, then you just want to retire, which means that you're just uh, not going to be very happy continue to work on it. So that's my advice. Find your passion, first of all, uh, and do that. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of buzz in the AI and tech industry. Avoid that. Don't jump into it thinking that is some magical ride, fairyland ride. It's not, right.
It's
Just
not.
because it's a trend, don't go into it. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't go just because it's a trend. Go into it because you actually have a purpose, something that you want to accomplish long term. And if you do, then follow that thesis. Don't follow the buzz. Don't follow the, just because there's a trend going on, because these trends come and go, right? And when the trends go, then you're going to be out of a job.
That is true. So, Adnan, it was really nice having you as a guest, and
For sure. Yeah.
we got to learn a lot about you.
Do you
And
have any parting words you'd like to share?
No, I think I already did, which is basically, follow your passion, do something that you care about, and if you do that, um, then you're going to be a lot more happier and successful. Frankly speaking, I've never seen a person who actually is passionate about what they do and they're not successful, right? Other people find you because you're passionate about what you do, and they're gonna um, more likely to work with you than somebody who doesn't care about what they do. But yeah, it was great to be here, and thank you so much for having me and for your uh, intriguing and skepticism towards AI. We need, we definitely need that to and that's the way that we can actually reduce the signal to noise ratio.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Adnan. Bye bye.
All right, thank you so much.
All right. So that was our first guest. What did you think?
I think he was pretty optimistic.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure.
At a certain point, you kind of had me lost to the questions, but then I had to bring myself back. But I think he made a lot of valid points, and especially I agree with his opinion when it comes to following your passion.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. I understand where he was coming from, but I'm not entirely sold, to be honest.
So much more.
Like the future
I
of
mean,
AI.
it's always good to be a little skeptical about things. It plays in your favor sometimes, but yeah, I think it was super informative.
Yeah, it was.
I am curious where AI is going to take us, although I cannot get the concept of the Terminator coming out. Like maybe in the next 50 years, or I guess that's why I'm a bit of a skeptic, but it would kind of be cool.
Yeah.
Not not
No.
but
No.
just to have robots like that. I mean, did you check out the AI that recently came out?
No.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're the ones that Elon Musk is working on his Neuralink as well, where he says that he's near completion to, have chips inserted in our minds, in our brains. So it's that's I feel very
I don't want to be the next
uneasy
John
about
Connor, to be
that
honest.
because that feels like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, exactly. No.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want that.
Yeah, but I am curious what his chip is going to do. Yeah, maybe. Because it's very intriguing at the same time. But yeah, I don't think that's something for me. Other than that, I am really interested in robotics and how it is going to advance as as a civilization. But yeah, I think it was really interactive and fun talking to you.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. It was.
Yeah.
It was fun knowing actually what the technology actually does and what was the mind behind it. And for our viewers, especially, don't jump into AI. Don't jump into AI.
I mean, if it's your passion, sure, go ahead. But I was quite skeptical, and you genuinely lost when you were talking about what for a second. I was like, where is he going with
Okay.
this?
So what I was talking about was that it was kind of it acted as a catalyst, to the technology, and the progression was was at a faster pace because it was.
Did you watch like a recent war movie? Is that why you asked him? Did you watch anything by Christopher Nolan recently? Okay,
No.
but yeah, that was for sure an interesting debate. Yeah, and thank you guys for watching our first episode.
And if you are sold by him, I think you need more skepticism and you need to listen to more controversies because that was our soul.
Stay skeptical.